In this final chapter video, we'll create the ball return for our bowling alley. As a carryover from the previous video, we'll be using the Bowling Alley 04 file that can be found in the Working Files folder. Let's start by taking our left-hand view full screen. Now, the ball return will be positioned down where the bowling ball will be thrown. So in relation to the objects that you see in the view, let's scoot over to the right-hand side. Once we're there, we'll activate the rectangle shape command. Turning off the auto grid, we'll now draw our rectangle above the floor just to the right of the gutter and alley. For the dimensions on our rectangle, let's go to the Modify column and type this. We'll give it a length of 200 and a width of 325. Back in the view, we'll position the shape as needed. Take the bottom line down to the floor, then the right-hand side line over to the right. Okay, once we've got things in position, let's go ahead and type Z. We're going to want to do a little work down to the vertex level, so let's right-click on our rectangle, converting it down to an editable spline. Opening the entry in the stack, we'll drop down to the vertex level. Let's now select the vertex on the top left-hand side. We'll then move that vert down lower to the one that's below it. Okay, the vertex that we're using has Bezier handles. Being that the handles are positioned at a right angle to each other, tells us that the Bezier vertex now has Bezier corner handles. Let's grab the handle on the right, pulling it up to bow the top segment. Now, you do see a few facets or break in the angle on that top segment. Let's see if we can't smoothen that out over in the right-hand column. Way at the top of the controls, we'll open up the Interpolation tab. For the step count, we'll crank that up to 25. Those little facets that you were seeing are officially called steps. With more steps added into the mix, we've been able to smoothen out our line. Okay, let's go back to the top of our stack by right-clicking on the screen, choosing Top Level. And we'll then take our perspective view back to being full screen. With our selected line quite small on the screen, let's go ahead and hit Z. I'll then zoom back just a tad and orbit to the side. That orbiting being done with the Alt-Middle mouse wheel combo. Okay, let's now extrude our shape. We'll head to the modifier list, going down to the ease. Let's now change our extrude amount up to 100. Okay, now we're going to do a little bit of sub-object modeling here. Let's change the color of our wireframe to light blue. Let's then turn on edged faces by typing F4. What I'd like to do is to select the two lines of edges that make up that top curvature on both sides. Now, in order to do that, I'll first have to select too many edges, then take my selection down. In the stack, let's begin by adding an Edit Poly modifier. With that new entry in place, we'll open up the modifier, getting down to the edge level. Okay, turning things more to a side view, I'll window select all the edges that make up the top curved part of the surface. Now again, I know I'm going to get too many, so I'll at least start with my selection. Once I've got what I have selected, I'll have to take that selection down. For all the edges that make up the top, I'll change from a rectangular selection over to a paint selection. Then holding down the Alt key to subtract from the selection, I'll paint over the edges that make up the top. What I want to be left with is only two solid red lines that make up the top edge of my surface. Let's orbit around and see how the backside looks. Now, it is frankly a little bit tough to tell in using a lighter blue color for the mesh. Let's darken that up for just a minute so we can verify what we have selected and what we don't have selected. Okay, keeping my fingers crossed, I think we're looking pretty good. What we're now going to do is chamfer these two edges. Wanting to have the maximum number of options, we'll right-click on the screen, opening up the menu. Down on the lower left-hand side, you see the chamfer command. To the left of that is its option box. We'll move our mouse directly on the option box, then click. This brings up the chamfer caddy. Getting ourselves in good position will now adjust the value on the second level. When you place your mouse on the setting, you'll get a couple horizontal spinners. I'm going to take my value somewhere between 8 and 9. Now, the benefit of using the option box with the chamfer is now we can add some additional segments in between the two lines. We can do that by controlling the third level spinner down. I'm going to go ahead and add an additional 5 segments on the inside. Now, once the numbers are in place, I'll execute the command by clicking on the green arrow on the lower left-hand side. When the caddy closes, let's go back up to the top of the Edit Poly. Now, the inside of the ball return needs to be cut out. To do that, I'll make a smaller copy of the object created, then cut that out using the Boolean subtraction command. Let's do this. We'll activate the scale command, then verify that the %snap toggle is still on. Holding down the Shift key and filling in the gold triangle on the gizmo, we can then make our copy. Now, you might be able to see that a little bit easier if we change from shade to wireframe mode. Let's do that typing F3. Okay, let's go ahead and make our copy. Working with the values down below the timeline, we'll again make our copy about 70% of the size of the original. When our numbers are in place and the dialog opens, we'll simply say OK. Now, we do want our copied object to be a bit longer up and down. For that, we'll scale it one more time, locking down to the Y direction on our gizmo. Once we've done that, we'll change its wireframe color to something lighter, then go back to shade mode and get things in position. With the floor visible in our scene, we've got to make sure that we don't orbit a little bit too low. Okay, let's see what we can do. Let's go back and select the darker blue object. Heading back to the command panel, we'll activate Create, then Compound Objects. Looking for the Boolean command, we'll find it down on the bottom left-hand row. We'll verify that the operation is set to subtraction. We'll click on the Start Picking button, and we'll click on the smaller light blue object. Very good. Once that's done, we'll turn off edged faces by typing F4. We'll get out of the Boolean command. We'll move our ball return to the left-hand side of the alley, and we can save our completed project up as Bowling Alley Completed. Okay, that'll do it for the modeling. Next task will be to add the materials. Job well done.